To follow along with the written version of this pattern and download the interactive PDF, use the links on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/doughnut. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a little tiny donut. Look at how cute this pattern is. I am obsessed with this. Donuts are actually my favorite sweets in general. I love donuts. I'm obsessed with them, and I absolutely love this pattern. Not only because it's adorable, but also because it requires basically no sewing at all. You just have to sew it closed, and then if you want to add sprinkles, you can sew on the sprinkles, but it's actually not made in like two pieces. It's made in one whole piece, all in one piece. Not only will we learn how to make a regular donut in this video, we'll also learn how to make your donut bigger if you want to make a larger donut, and we'll learn how to make a few different face options for the donut as well. This pattern is part of a series of patterns that I have for a bunch of different kinds of sweets for our season 4 of our Club Crochet kits. That includes a whole bunch of different patterns like our ice cream cones, eclairs, a bunch of gummy bears, some pies, and a chocolate covered strawberry, and a few other mystery patterns that are coming out later on in the season. If you want to find all these patterns, they're going to be available at clubcrochet.com/sweets. We're also going to be doing live crochet alongs throughout the season as well. It's part of our new seasonal crochet kits, and I'm really proud of these kits, and I think you're really going to like it, but we'll talk more about that a little later. Okay, now really quick before we get started, let's talk about a few housekeeping things. The first is that this pattern is somewhat beginner friendly. I do take my sweet time, sweet, as we go, just to really make sure that I go through detail from every single stitch that we're using in this video or in this pattern. But there are a few parts of this pattern that are maybe better for if you already know how to crochet. So if you've never crocheted before in your life, I suggest starting with either my beginner series at crocheting101.com. That is a completely beginner series that teaches you how to crochet for complete beginners, including a bunch of projects that get you better as you go, or starting with a more beginner friendly pattern like our strawberry pattern. This one is actually really beginner friendly. It's from another Amigurumi artist that goes by drippy, and I talk more about that in the video tutorial for this pattern, but this one is much more beginner friendly. Well, not much more, but it's slightly more beginner friendly than our donut pattern. So that is my caveat for complete beginners that have never crocheted before in their life. You still might be able to make this, but just, some caveat. If you need some extra help, obviously leave comments down below in the comments. You can also join the Facebook group and the Discord channel that we have available. Those are great resources to go to if you're a complete beginner that you need to ask for extra help. There's a bunch of people there, including myself, that will help out. You can find links for that and everything that else that I'm talking about in the description down below. You can also join the live crochet alongs. That's a great way to get extra help from me. I crochet patterns live every single week, and you can join in, ask any questions, and I can show you live on camera how to do certain parts of this pattern, or any pattern from the library as well. To make sure that you don't miss those live crochet alongs, all you need to do is like this video and subscribe down below. Hit the little bell icon so you don't miss it when we come out with new live videos. There's also a left and a right-handed version of this video available, so make sure to watch the version that works best for whatever hand you are dominant in. And if you want to quickly jump around in this pattern, go to round 5 or round 6, or how to make the edge, or how to sew it closed, you can use the time codes linked in the description or at the bar at the bottom of this video, or in the PDF version of this pattern. Those will quickly help you jump around in this pattern to get to exactly where you want to. Okay, well, before we actually get crocheting, let's talk about all the materials that you're going to need to crochet this pattern along with me. For this pattern, you're going to need the following materials. Let's start with the tools. We're going to be using a crochet hook, of course, in this pattern. We'll be using a size G 4mm crochet hook. It's my favorite size hook to use for the yarn that we're going to be using, which we'll talk about in a second, but it's going to be worsted weight cotton yarn. Now, if you're going to use a slightly larger yarn, like if you want to use blanket yarn, for example, you're going to want a larger crochet hook. So maybe a size J or K hook, depending on how big the yarn is. You'll also need a pair of scissors for cutting parts of the pattern, and then a darning needle to help sew in hard to reach stitches. I like using these crimped end darning needles. It just makes it a little bit easier for you. I do have these available in the shop, by the way. Okay, and then we're going to be pulling our yarn and the rest of our materials from our new seasonal crochet kit. These are giant crochet kits that make a whole bunch of different patterns, and for this pattern we're going to be using definitely our beige yarn. That's going to be for the bottom of your donut, the cake part of the donut. And then I'm going to be using cyan for the frosting for our donut, just because it's a little bit easier to see with this pink background than using pink. So we're going to be using cyan for this. And then we'll need a little bit of a different color of yarn. Let's use our yellow for our sprinkles for this pattern. You'll of course need some stuffing, and you're definitely going to need some safety eyes. I'm going to be using size 6mm safety eyes in this pattern. And then the last thing that you're going to need is some black thread, and that's going to be adding the smile on the face of your donut. But you can use black yarn that's threaded. You can actually split this black yarn into different threads if you don't have black thread like this. And of course you'll need a little bit of stuffing as well. Now, if you want to get our giant seasonal crochet kits just like this, they are available in our store, and it's a great way to support this channel monetarily. It comes with all the materials that you need to make not only this pattern, but a bunch of other additional patterns, including our giant strawberry and all the patterns that you saw in the beginning, and a few other ones that are coming out throughout the season. Plus, this box is actually a yarn holder itself, so you can actually pull yarn out from the box. And the box comes included with 3 months of Club Crochet membership, which gets you access to all the patterns in my library, including like 100 or 300 different patterns from the library. It comes with 3 months of membership, and of course it's a great way to support this channel monetarily if you want to help out. Okay, well, that's everything that you need to crochet our donut. Let's get started and actually crochet now. Okay, so you want to start with your frosting color, and we're going to be using cyan today because it's a little bit easier to see with our backdrop here. Now we're going to start by making a slip knot and chaining 12. If you've never made a slip knot before, it's pretty easy. You just make a loop over itself like this, and then fold that loop over the end attached to the ball, and then pull the end inside the ball through the loop like that to create a little knot at the end. What's great about a slip knot is that you can tighten it around your crochet hook like this, and when you pull this end, it'll tighten the hook or the loop, but when you pull this end, nothing will happen because it's knotted together. So we want to pull that tight all around the crochet hook, and we're going to start by chaining 12 times and then slip stitching to the first chain that we made to make a big ring. To make a chain, you just want to yarn over with the end attached to the ball by putting it over the crochet hook like this, and then pulling that on the hook through the loop on the hook. The easiest way to do that is to kind of twist it to make the hook line up with the loop, and then scoop it through like that to really make sure that it gets through the loop. We want to do that 12 times. That's going to be 1, and you can count the chains by looking at that V. See how it made a little V there? That's going to be a 1 chain. We want to do 12 of those. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice how I am making my grip a little bit higher up, closer to the chain as I go. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I kind of sped up there at the end. Okay, and if you want to count your chains, you just want to count all those V's all the way down from where this loop is coming out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now what we want to do is we want to slip stitch to the very first chain that we make. So we're going to take our crochet hook and go to that first chain that we made right here and place the crochet hook into that chain. Then we want to yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through that chain by twisting and scooping, and then through the loop on the hook like this. That's going to create a slip knot. And that's going to be how we're going to get our loop started. And you can notice now that it makes a little ring. Okay, so for round 1 of our frosting, we want to single crochet into every chain around, And then one last single crochet into the top loop of that slip stitch that we made. That'll be right here, will be where our last single crochet is going to be. Our first single crochet is going to be in the next chain over, which is going to be right here. So right after where we made that slip stitch, right there is going to be our first one. And we want to single crochet into each chain around. That's going to be 12 single crochets total. As I work around, I'm going to work around my tail end for just the first few stitches, just to keep it locked into place. For a single crochet, we're going to place our crochet hook into the stitch. In this case, it's going to be this chain right here, and just place our crochet hook into that chain. It's kind of easier to kind of like pry it through with your fingernail. Once it's into that chain, we can yarn. Well, first I'm going to place our tail end over the crochet hook like this, so we work around this end. But then we're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball and pull it through that chain by twisting and scooping like that. And now you should have 2 loops on the hook. Now to finish the single crochet, we're going to yarn over with the end attached to the ball again and pull it through both of these loops simultaneously with a twist and a scoop. And that's going to be the single crochet. This pattern is going to be primarily made using these single crochet stitches. So we're going to be making a lot of single crochets in this pattern. There's our first one. Let's do our next one. The next one's going to be right. Let me use my needle here. This was where our first stitch was. The next one's going to be right here into the stitch right next to it. So we'll place our crochet hook under that top loop of that chain, yarn over with the end attached to the ball, pull it through that chain, yarn over again, and pull through 2 loops for a second single crochet. There's 1 and 2. And I'll show you how to count those single crochets in just a bit. So that's 1, 2. We want to do 12 of those. I'm going to let my tail end go here and just let it hang off the end. And we're just going to keep single crocheting around. The next chain is going to be right here. Into that next chain, yarn over, pull it through the chain, yarn over again, and pull through 2 loops on the hook. 1, 2, 3. Here's the next one. And 4. We're just going to keep going around. That's going to be 5. And 6. 7. Let's get a little bit more yarn here. There's 8. 9. 10. 11. And then our last one is going to be right at this top loop here. That's technically our slip stitch, but it kind of does look like a chain. So it's a little easier to find in that manner. And there we go. That's going to be our last single crochet for round 1. I'm going to pull this tail in just a little tighter, which will pull this little knot just in just slightly. See how it just kind of pulls that in a little bit? Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 1. Now what we're going to do is grab a bit of yarn in a different color that we can use as a stitch marker for this pattern so that we can keep track of where the ends of the rounds are. So I'm going to grab some yarn in a different color, and I'll just use yellow for this pattern. And then we're just going to place it over. We just want a contrasting color here. We're just going to place it over where that end is, right like that. And that's going to help us keep track of where the end of the round is. We can actually even just pull it all the way through the center if you want to. The whole point of this is just to keep track of it. Now I'm going to hold it down with my index finger of my dominant hand as I make my first stitch of the next round. That way it works around this end and just keeps track of where the ends of the rounds are. Okay, now we've made our 12 single crochets. We can work now into round 2. For round 2, we're going to be working into each of the stitches around. In round 2, you want to really make sure that you're under both loops of each single crochet that you made. Not just the back loop. That's going to be this one right here. Not just the top loop. That'll be that one right there. But both loops simultaneously like this. Imagine this is our crochet hook. That's going to be really important just for all of your stitches throughout your pattern, but later on we're going to work only into the front loops or the back loops to create the drippy edge of the frosting. So that's going to be really important to see the difference of. Now the first single crochet that we made is going to be right here, right after I put this yellow yarn to keep track of our end. But if you're having a hard time finding where that first one is, what you can do is count where this loop is coming out of the crochet hook. And that stitch right here is going to be the first one. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, which would mean this one is our first stitch to work into. So we're going to work into that stitch and we're going to continue on to round 2. For round 2, we're going to do a single crochet into our first stitch and then an increase into our next stitch. An increase just means that we're going to put 2 single crochets into the same stitch. That's going to make us increase our stitch count by the end of the round. We're going to repeat that process of doing 1 single crochet and then 1 increase stitch all the way around until we get to the end. That's going to be 6 repeats total. That's going to increase our stitch count up from 12, which is our current stitch count, up to 18, which is going to be our stitch count at the end of round 2 here. So let's get round 2 started. We're going to start by finding our first stitch right here, going under both loops simultaneously like this, yarn over with the crochet hook, and then pull it under that stitch like that. Yarn over again and pull through 2. So we're just doing single crochets like we have been throughout our piece. We're going to do, okay, so that's going to be our first single crochet. Next, we want to do 2 single crochets into the next stitch. The next stitch is going to be right here. And we're going to do 2 single crochets into that same stitch. So that's 1 and 2 in the same stitch. We want to repeat that process of doing 1 single crochet and then 1 increase all the way around. This was an increase, those 2 single crochets in the same spot. So let's do our second repeat. 1 single crochet and then 1 increase stitch right here. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Here's our next repeat. Single crochet 1 into the next stitch and then increase into the stitch after. There's 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Let's get our yarn up a little bit and keep repeating around. 1 single crochet, 1 increase. And like I said, this should bring your stitch count up from 12 to 18 stitches around. And you'll notice how as we keep going in our pattern, it'll start getting bigger and bigger because we're going to add more and more increases into each round. Okay, and this is going to be the last single crochet and the end of round 2. I'm going to take my tail end here, pull it almost all the way through so that there's just a little tail end on the inside. And then I'm just going to fold it over our piece like this, and then continue working around as if it's not there at all to help keep track of the ends of our rounds. Okay, so that's the end of round 2. For round 3, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets and then an increase stitch. And we're going to repeat that process 6 times around. That's going to bring your stitch count up to 24 stitches around. So we have 18 stitches around right now. If you want to count your stitches, just look at all the V's at the edge of the stitches to count them all. But we should have 24 stitches around by the end of this, by the end of round 3 here. So let's start round 3. We want 2 single crochets. Here's going to be the first one. That's going to be 1 and 2 single crochets, and then an increase into the next stitch right here, which means 2 single crochets into the same exact spot. So just like that. 2 single crochets, 1 increase stitch, all the way around. Let's do it again. 2 single crochets, 1, 2, and then an increase right here. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Keep that repeat going. 1, 2, and then another increase right here. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. And you kind of see the pattern that's happening now, how it's slowly making our donut frosting bigger and bigger as we go. Okay, just 2 more repeats. Single crochet 1 and 2, and then an increase. 1 and 2. See how it's getting bigger? One last repeat here. I can tell because our stitch marker's right here. 1 and 2, and then an increase right here. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 3. You should have 24 stitches around now. We'll pull our stitch marker up, and we can continue on to round 4. For round 4, we want to do 3 single crochets and then an increase stitch, repeating that process all the way around until we get to the end of the round. That's going to bring your stitch count up from 24 up to 30 stitches around. So it's going to be a very similar repeat as the round before, but this time we're putting 3 single crochets between increases. So let's go ahead and get started. We want 3 single crochets. It's going to be 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then an increase after it right here. 1 and 2 in the same stitch. 3 single crochets, 1 increase. Let's repeat that all the way around. Let's do our second repeat. 1, 2, and 3, and then our increase right here. 1 and 2. And you can see how I'm starting to get quicker and quicker as we go, because as these repeats get as we keep repeating, it gets easier and easier to crochet. I always say that the hardest round in all of your pieces is going to be either round 1 or round 2. After that, usually it gets a lot easier as you work around. So that's 3, and then our next increase right here. Okay, 2 more repeats. 1, 2, and 3, and then another increase right here. 1 and 2, like that. One last repeat, 3 single crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and then our last increase is going to be right here. 2 in the same stitch, just like that. And that's going to be the end of round 4. Now, before I continue on, I'm going to mention this again later on. If you want to make your donut bigger, if you don't want a donut that is the normal size of our donut, which is going to be about this size, you can keep increasing up to make a larger and larger donut. So if you want to make a giant donut, for example, what you would do in our next round, instead of what we'll be doing, which is going to be single crocheting into each stitch around, what you can do instead is keep increasing up. So you keep doing this pattern, adding 1 additional single crochet between increases until you get to the diameter that you want. So let's say you want to get the donut about like that big or something crazy. All you would do is do 4 single crochets and then an increase, repeating that around, and then in the next round you do 5 single crochets and then an increase, and you'd start to get bigger and bigger as you go. Now you are going to also have to repeat the rounds of single crochets, which is what we're about to do, and you're going to have to repeat, like you're going to have to make some alterations as you go, but that is going to be the first step to making your donut bigger. Now again, I'll be talking about that more as we go as well. I do suggest you make a donut the regular size first, just so you have an idea of how the construction works before you start messing with the pattern to make it bigger. Another option for making your donut bigger is going to be using blanket yarn, or just larger yarn in general will make your donut bigger. But I'll talk more about that again in a little bit. Let's pull our stitch marker up now, and we'll continue on to round 5. And actually rounds 5 and 6, 2 rounds in a row, we're just going to be doing single crochets into every single stitch around. So that's just going to be 1 single crochet into each stitch around. Now because we're making a normal size donut, that's going to be 30 stitches around for each round. So I'm just doing 1 single crochet per stitch all the way around for 2 rounds. 30 stitches per round, 2 rounds in a row. Now again, if you wanted to make your donut bigger, what you could do here is you would have to also make more rounds of just single crochets. This round, these 2 rounds together are basically adding height to our donut. You know, where this is creating the diameter of the donut, right now we're creating the height of the donut. And we'll have to do this again later on when we get to the cake part of the donut, but yeah, that's basically what we're doing. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat these, just keep doing single crochets all the way around for another 2 rounds total. And we're coming up to the end of round 5 pretty soon. And hey, if you haven't yet, please consider liking this video down below and subscribing to the YouTube channel. It's a great way to support the channel, super duper free. And yeah, I come out with a whole bunch of video tutorials just like this all the time. Here we are at the end of round 5, by the way. I'll pull our stitch marker up now and continue on to round 6 now. But yeah, please consider liking and subscribing down below. You can also become a member to get access to our full library of tutorials. I come out with new patterns just like this all the time, and every single pattern that I come out with has a full-length video tutorial just like this. Okay, now really quick, before I get going, sometimes I like to do this thing in my video tutorials because I'm pretty sure that people skip these rounds where I'm just doing single crochets into every single stitch around because they're kind of boring. So what I think would be kind of fun is let's do a super secret giveaway. This is an ultra secret giveaway. I'm not going to post about this on any social media or anything. All you need to do to enter to win is comment down below with an emoji of... Let's go with an emoji of a bumblebee. If you post an emoji of a bumblebee, what I'll do is a few, maybe like a month or so after this pattern comes out, I'll choose someone at random and you'll win a free 3-month membership to Club Crochet to get access to my full library. That's our super secret giveaway. Okay, and let's pretend that never happened. That's just for us to know. And let's finish up this round. Okay, and that's going to be the end of round 6 and our 2 rounds of just single crochets around. You can kind of see how it's starting to create the height of our donut now. And like I said before, if you want to make your donut even bigger, you would just keep single crocheting around after that. Okay, now we can continue on to round 7. I'm going to pull my stitch marker up now. And in round 7, we're going to start creating actually the frosting for the donut. We're going to create the drippy edge to the edge of our donut here that makes this like nice drippy edge. Now, if you want to make your donut all in one color, you don't have to worry about this round. Just continue right on to round 8 by just single crocheting into every stitch around. But if you want to create this frosting edge, continue on just like I'm doing right here. So for round 7, what we'll be doing is we're only going to work into the front loops only, meaning this stitch right here, right in the front. So normally we've been working under both loops like that, but for this round, to make the drippy edge, you only want to work in the one closest to you right here, just a single edge. In this single edge, we're going to do a repeat all the way around the piece. The repeat is going to be, and don't worry, I'm obviously going to show you the stitches as we go, but the repeat's going to be 1 slip stitch into the first stitch, a single crochet into the second stitch, a half double crochet into the third stitch, a single crochet into the fourth stitch, and then another slip stitch into the 5th stitch. And then we're going to repeat that all the way around. So that's going to be slip, single, half, single, slip, slip, single, half, single, slip, all the way around. And it's going to create this little wave all the way around our edge. Now, if you're making your donut bigger, that means you're going to have more stitches to work with. So you're going to have to repeat that same repeat more times around to make more drips around the edge. So there's just your heads up if you're making a larger donut. But let's just continue on for our normal size donut here and do that repeat. So we're going to start by doing a slip stitch into our first stitch. I'm going to go under the front loop only. Usually to get under the front loop only, I like to poke up from the bottom and straight up like that. It kind of makes it easier to get into that stitch. We're going to start with the slip stitch. So we're going to yarn over, pull it through that stitch and through the loop on the hook like that. That's going to be our slip stitch. Next, we're going to do a single crochet, which is what we've been doing throughout this entire pattern. So we're going to go into that first front loop, yarn over, pull it through that stitch, then yarn over again and pull through 2 loops on the hook to make our single crochet. Next, we're going to do our half double crochet. For that, we're going to yarn over, go into the next stitch right here, front loop only, yarn over again, and pull it through that front loop. Now you should have 3 loops on the hook. To finish your half double crochet, we want to yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops simultaneously. The easiest way to get through all 3 of those loops is really twist the crochet hook so it lines up and then scoop it to get under all the threads of all those stitches, all the loops around. Okay, so there's our slip stitch, single crochet, half double. Now we want to do another single crochet into the next front loop. So just like normal. And then finally, another slip stitch into this last front loop right here to finish up our first repeat. So again, that's slip, single, half, single, slip. Let's do that repeat again. Slip stitch into the next one to start our repeat, then a single crochet, Then our half double crochet, remember we yarn over before we even go into the stitch, then we go into the stitch, yarn over again, pull it through that stitch, then yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops simultaneously with a twist and a scoop like that. Then a single crochet after a half double crochet, and then another slip stitch into the next stitch. This is going to be repeated 6 times around, by the way, so you should keep repeating until you have 6 of these. Let's keep going though. Single or slip stitch 1, single crochet 1, half double crochet 1, single crochet 1, slip stitch 1. Okay, keep doing that repeat. Slip stitch 1, single crochet 1, half double crochet 1, single crochet 1, slip stitch 1. Okay, just 2 more repeats, or maybe 3, I'm not sure. Slip stitch, I'll go quicker now. Single crochet, half double, single, slip. Last repeat, slip stitch, single crochet 1, half double crochet 1, single crochet 1, and then finally a slip stitch into our last stitch right there. Okay, so that's going to be the end of round 7, and now is the super fun part, I think. We're going to create a hidden end to hide this end in. To do that, we're going to start by cutting the yarn. So you just want to cut the yarn. You don't need a very long end. This is just going to be to hide the end in, so maybe about that long is probably just about fine. And then we're just going to pull it all the way through like that. Okay? Now we want to thread this onto our needle. So we'll thread that onto our needle. And we're going to create something that I call the hidden end. To create the hidden end, we're going to go into the top of the next stitch right here. We're going to go under both loops of that next stitch, just like that. And I'm just going to keep it pulled out just like this, just so you can kind of see where we're going to work this into. But now we're going to take our needle and go right into where this loop is coming out. So straight into the top of that loop. And then we're going to find some spots on the back of our stitches. Just a few places on the back. You don't need to go too crazy, but let's go like into that much. And we're just going to pull it through those stitches like that. Now we want to pull this so that this gets pulled so that it looks like the same as the tops of these ones. That's why it's called the hidden end. So we're just going to pull it very subtly to match the tops of the rest of those stitches so that it really hides where that end is in. Okay, we can pull our needle out now, and I'm just going to cut the yarn. You don't need to leave a long end on the inside. About that's probably just fine. I'll save this for stuffing into our piece a little later, but that is going to be the end of our piece right there. Okay, next up, we can continue on to the bottom of the cake. Okay, so to continue on to the bottom of our cake, or our donut rather, I call it the cake bottom because this is a cake donut. We're going to be using our beige yarn for the bottom of it. And we're going to start actually by, let's go ahead and just put that end in there really quick. And we're going to start by finding the very first stitch because in round, we're going to continue on to round 8. I'm going to go ahead and fold our frosting edge up like this to reveal those unused back loops only from the previous round. Because remember how we only worked into the front loops only for that frosting top, right? So next round, we're going to work into those back loops that we didn't work into before. What we're going to do is we're going to do a single crochet into all of those back loops around using our beige yarn. To get started though, we're going to find our very first one, which is going to be this one right here, right after our stitch marker. If you're having a hard time finding that, count backwards. There should be 30 stitches around, and this one right here is going to be your last stitch. And if you count backwards, 3, 4, 5, 6, up, should be right here for your very first stitch around. Now, what I like to do is actually find the stitch right before that. So that's going to be right here. oops, right there. So basically like right where that end is coming out. And we're going to, I like to pull a loop with my beige yarn through that loop and then start single crocheting into all the other back loops around. So I'm going to take my crochet hook, go into that back loop before the first stitch. That's going to be right here. Then we'll take our beige yarn and make a little loop with our beige yarn and then hook onto that loop with our crochet hook and just pull it through that back loop like that. Now we're going to keep this tail end over it because we want to work around that tail end as we go, but we want to go, oopsies, don't pull too tight because you'll pull that loop out. We want to go into the next back loop only right here, get our crochet hook under that back loop only, and make sure that tail end is over the crochet hook as well. And then yarn over with the end attached to the ball, pull it through that back loop, and then yarn over again and pull through 2 loops, 1 and 2, to make our very first single crochet. And then I'm pulling this tail in just a little bit to kind of tighten that top of it just a bit. And that's going to be our first single crochet. Now we're just going to single crochet into all those back loops. That's going to be 30 single crochets total. It's a good idea right now to count your stitches as you go. So I'm going to go into the next one right here, do another single crochet like that. That's going to be 2, 1, 2, and then I'm just going to let that tail end hide on the inside and keep going around. So that's 1, 2. Here's going to be 3, 1, 2. There you go. So you can kind of see how it's 3. 1, 2, 3. See those V's? Those are a good way to count your stitches. 1, 2, 3. Next back loop only will be 4. Oops. And 5. And then we're just going to keep doing that all the way around our piece. Oopsies. Really make sure you're under all the threads of that those back loops as you go. The easiest way to get under those back loops, by the way, if you're having some trouble, is kind of poke straight down and then kind of pry it up. That's the best way I found to get under those back loops. So it's kind of the opposite of the front loops, because remember the front loops I pointed straight up and then pried it in. And this way we're doing it the other way around, which makes sense, right? Because we're working into the back loops, not the front loops around. Yeah, and there we go. We're just keep single crocheting around. And we're almost actually already done with this round of 30 single crochets around. And you might be thinking like, okay, how is this going to be a donut though? But you'll see. You'll see. We just need to do a few rounds first. Now notice how I split that yarn. This is called splitting the yarn. It's not good. You do not want to split yarn. But you see how I kind of pulled through half of that stitch? I'm going to pull my crochet hook out now, pull it back out, and then try that single crochet again, because you really want to make sure you're under all the plies of the thread. The plies are those twisted ends. This yarn is actually a 4-ply yarn so it means there's like 4 strands of yarn that are twisted all together to make one big strand of yarn. This yarn is actually technically a multi-ply yarn, which means that it's 4 plies, but each individual ply is itself like a bunch of plies. It doesn't matter. I talk about it more later on, but it's our exclusive club crochet cotton yarn, so I'm really proud of it actually. Okay, so that's going to be, that should be 29 stitches. This last one should be right here, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and count my stitches really quick to make sure that I have 30 stitches around. To count my stitches, I'm going to pull my crochet hook out like this, just so that the loop is out and it gives us more room to work with. And I'm going to start counting with that one that loop is coming out of, and I'm just going to count all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. So this is going to be your first stitch that you made and the first stitch that we'll work around in our next round. But I do have 30 stitches around, so everything is going great. Pull a little tighter, and we'll continue on to round 9. For round 9, we're just going to do a single crochet into every single stitch around. It's really easy. We're just going to go straight into that first stitch right here. We've basically already done this before. The first stitch can be a little hard to get into, but you just want to make sure that you're under both loops of the next stitch, and then just do single crochets all the way around. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a single crochet into every single stitch as we go. And again, if you haven't yet, please consider liking this video down below and subscribing to the YouTube channel. It's a great, easy way to support the channel. You can also join our email list by going to the website, clubcrochet.com, and creating an account. It'll add you to our email list, which will notify you whenever I come out with new video tutorials or patterns, or when I do live crochet alongs, which actually I do every single week. By the way, if you're curious of what my favorite donut is, I actually used to work at a donut shop. That was the first, my first job was working at a donut shop. And my favorite donut are actually the donuts that you're seeing right now. I really like it when they have pink frosting with sprinkles. That's my favorite donut ever. And yeah, so if you're ever curious of my favorite donut, it's a cake donut. I don't like the glazed donuts. I mean, they're fine. The poofy glazed ones, they're fine. But I really like cake donuts personally. I loved working at that donut shop. It was great. I'm obsessed with donuts. Okay, and that's going to be our last single crochet right here. And I didn't really pull that stitch marker up. So let's go ahead and fold our stitch marker up now. And that'll be the end of round 9. Now, if you're making your donut bigger, so if you've already made your donut bigger, you might want to repeat this round a few more times to add more height to your donut. In fact, if you just want to make your donut taller in general, so you want to make it like a little bit like a taller donut, you could repeat that round again by just continuing to do more single crochets around. But I'm just going to keep going around and make it a normal like we've normally be doing. And I'm going to continue on now to round 10. For round 10, we're going to do 3 single crochets and then our first invisible decrease. An invisible decrease, I'll show you when you get here. It's a way to decrease that's my favorite way to decrease. Now, if you want to learn different versions of decreasing, you don't have to do the invisible decrease. There might be a different version of a decrease that you're more comfortable with, and that's totally fine. I really like doing invisible decreases. I think they're the best way to decrease. And I'll show you how to do that when we get there. But we're going to repeat that process all the way around of doing 1, 2, 3 single crochets and then an invisible decrease repeated 6 times around all the way around. That's going to bring our stitch count down. So now we're going from 30 stitches around down to 24 stitches around because each invisible decrease is going to remove 1 stitch from our stitch count. So let's go ahead and just get that started. We're going to do 3 single crochets. Start right here. We'll go 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then our invisible decrease. For an invisible decrease, you want to work under the front loops only of the next 2 stitches simultaneously. That's going to mean this one right here and this front loop at the same time. See how I'm under both of these front loops at the same time? Now, the easiest way to do that with your crochet hook is to poke up from the bottom and do one at a time. So I go under the first one right here and I poke straight up from the bottom to make sure I'm only under the first front loop. And then I flip my crochet hook around to go under the next front loop right here to line myself up and poke straight up under that next front loop. So see, I'm under 2 front loops at the same time. Then we can yarn over with the end attached to the ball and then pull it through those 2 front loops. Now, the hard part is pulling through those 2 front loops without accidentally splitting the yarn. The easiest way is, like normal, twist and scoop it. Really scoop it. It helps you get through those stitches a lot easier. Once you're under those 2 front loops and you have 2 loops on the hook, we can yarn over and pull through those 2 front loops like a normal single crochet. And you can kind of see how that's a really hidden way to decrease around. We're going to repeat that process 6 times total. So all the way around, we'll keep doing that repeat. That's going to be 3 single crochets, 1 invisible decrease. Now, the hard part about invisible decreases is it's a little bit hard to find where your next stitch is because it pulls those stitches up because it's invisible. But the next front loop is actually going to be, the next stitch is actually going to be right here. And we're going to work under both loops for our 3 single crochets like normal and then do our invisible decrease. But you can kind of see it's hard to see. See those ones, these 3 loops kind of get pulled up and it's hard to tell where the next stitch is, but it's actually right here. The easiest way is to look at the top and you can kind of see the V of the next stitch here, and then this stitch is obscured so you can't really see that V. So we'll go under the next stitch right here and do our regular single crochet. That's going to be 1, 2, and 3 single crochets, and then our invisible decrease. We go front loop, and then our single crochet like normal. And that's going to be our second repeat. Keep doing that around. That's 1, 2, and 3, and then invisible decrease. Front loop, single crochet. Let's keep repeating. 1, 2, and 3, and then invisible decrease, front loop, single crochet. Okay, keep going. 1, 2, and 3, and then invisible decrease, front loop, single crochet. Last repeat here. 1, let's get our a little bit more yarn. 2, and 3, and then our last invisible decrease, front loop, single crochet, just like that. And that's going to be the end of round 10. You should now have 24 stitches around if you're counting your stitches. We'll pull our stitch marker up just like that and continue on to round 11. For round 11, we're going to keep that repeat going. We're going to be doing 2 single crochets though this time, and then invisible decrease. So we're going to do 2 invisible decrease, 2 invisible decrease, repeated all the way around. That's going to bring your stitch count down from 24 stitches, which is our current stitch count, down to 18 stitches. So after this round, you should have 18 stitches around. So again, that's going to be 2 single crochets. We'll go into the next stitch under both loops for a regular single crochet. There's 1, and here's the next single crochet, 2, and then our invisible decrease, front loop, and then single crochet. And we'll repeat that process all the way around. 2 single crochets, 1 and 2, and then invisible decrease. And that's it. We're just going to keep doing that repeat all the way around. And like I said, this should bring your stitch count down to 18 stitches around. There's our third repeat, already halfway done. And we're actually almost done with the donut. After this round, we're just going to add our face and then finish up with our last 2 rounds of crocheting, and then we'll sew it all together. So that's 1, 2 single crochets, and then an invisible decrease. Okay, one more repeat here. 1 and 2, and then our invisible decrease. Like that. And now you should have 18 stitches around, and that's going to be the end of round 11. Let's pull our stitch marker up here. That'll be the end of round 11. Okay, so next up, we want to add the face of our donut. So I'm going to pull this loop out, and I'm going to take this frosting here and just fold it down like it's normally supposed to be, because we folded it up to get under those back loops earlier on. So I'm just going to fold it back down. There we go. So now it's got that wavy end. And now we want to add the face of our piece. Now, obviously, you don't have to add a face if you don't want to, but I like adding a face. So we're going to start by adding the, let's actually start by adding the mouth. Now I'm going to start by showing you how to do just a simple smile, which is the easiest way to do a smile. And then I'll try to show you how to do this little like kind of cat mouth like W instead. So first off, we're going to need our black thread. We only need a little bit of black thread here, so maybe like that much should be fine. Maybe I'll pull a little bit more because we're going to need some more for our W mouth. But that should be good, just like that. And we're going to start with our simple smile, which is the easiest way to add a smile to your donut. We're going to thread the end of our needle, just like normal, and twist it around. And I like to add the mouth into round 5 of our donut, and right in between one of these, like the downward slope of one of these frostings. So round 5, if you want to count from the top, this round right here will be round 1. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this round right here, just above the frosting, is where I usually like to add our smile. Now I'm going to add it right on the opposite side of where the end of our piece is. So right here into these stitches right here. For a simple smile, all you have to do is start by going through one stitch. Well, actually, let's start over here. We'll go through one stitch, and then you want to go a few stitches over. I'm gonna go 2 stitches over because that's how long I want the smile to be. So I'm just gonna go over 2 stitches, 1 and 2, just like this, and go straight back into the body like that and pull it tight. That's gonna create a little line on your face. Now we wanna turn this into a smile. First, we're gonna go under the next, the stitch right in between where the horizontal line is. That's gonna be right here. Instead of going between 2 stitches like this, like it normally would, we're gonna go in between the actual V itself. So we're gonna come out from the inside right in between that V, just like this. So we're gonna come out from the inside of our piece between that V and just pull the loop out like that. Next, we wanna go around the bar, the black bar, like this, and then back in from where that end is coming out. So just back into the piece just like normal, or I mean just like how we came out, and go straight on down back on the inside. And then as we pull it tight, you'll notice that it pulls it into a little V and then a little smile, just like that. And that's how I like to create perfect little simple smiles. And then I would add eyes to either side, right here and right here, 1 stitch away from either smile. And that's how to make a simple smile. Very, very easy. But let's try making something a little bit more complicated, because I've done a lot of simple smiles for donuts and they're fun and all, but it might be fun to try something a little weird. So let's try doing this little like W kind of face. And it's obviously going to be slightly more complicated than the smile, but it's going to use a very similar kind of idea. So what we want to do is we want to come out through 1 stitch, and we're going to start by creating a horizontal bar just like before, but this time we want it to be a little bit longer. We actually want to do 1, 2, 3 stitches away. So 1, 2, 3, yeah. Come out, and we'll go 3 stitches away. 1, 2, and 3, just like that, and go straight down on the inside. And that's going to start to create our horizontal bar. Next up, you want to pull it down just a little bit, like our normal smile, but just like barely. And the way that I like to do that is actually come out through right here in between the smile, or in between the 2 lines, but actually between this stitch right here. So it's kind of weird to see, but there's a difference between right here and right here. It's a very, very subtle difference, but it's very, the subtlety is very noticeable in your piece. So you want to come out through right here. See how there's this little line right there? Come out on the bottom of your piece like this, under, right, like that. See how I'm kind of like, I'm not right here, but I'm actually right there. That is the subtle difference that's going to be really, really important for making this look right. We're going to pull that out, and I'm going to pull it a little tighter so that we only have a little bit of our end here. And then I'm going to go around our horizontal bar just a little bit, and then back in right from where we came out, just like that. That's going to be the start, that's going to be the center, basically, of our W. Okay, so there's the center of our W. Next, you want to pull the other 2 ends a little further down. And this is why it's so important to distinguish between that and down here, is because you want the other sides, the other points of the W to be a little further down than the center of it. So next up, we're going to come up through our next stitch right here next to it and under one of these points. So basically we're going to come out through right here on this end and right here on this end and go around this black bar to pull this down into a W kind of shape. So now we'll go up through our next stitch right here, and this time you don't need to come out through that weird stitch in between. Instead, you can just come straight through the stitch itself like this, because you want it to be further pulled down, and then go around the black bar and back into where you came out like you did before. And that's going to pull down the one side of your smile. And I like to pull it just enough so that it makes more of a point. And then come out through the other end right here where you want the other edge of the mouth. Come up and then around that black bar again. And notice how I'm coming down and into the exact same stitch, going straight down on the inside. and we're going to pull that in like that to pull that knot in. The last thing we want to do is pull this tail end so that everything, our black line gets pulled tight so that all these ends are getting pulled a little tighter. I also like to kind of tuck the little edges of the thing. I like to kind of push them into the inside and pull everything a little bit tighter. A little tighter, and then I kind of round it out a little bit. And I kind of pull this one in. If you want to make sure that these knots get pulled in better, if you open on the inside like this, you can actually pull these and it'll pull those knots slightly tighter on the inside, which will kind of make it a little bit nicer on the outside. See? And then we're going to take this tail end here. And you see how it kind of like pulled that in? Don't worry about that too much just yet. We're going to kind of fix this in just a second after we double knot. So we'll go ahead and take these two tail ends and we're going to double knot them together all the way to the end. You don't need to double knot too tightly, just tight enough so that it's not like too loose. We're just going to pull those tail ends in and we can cut this nice and close on the inside. Like that. Look at the outside. And you kind of see how the W is starting to look up. Now I like to just kind of tweak it so that it looks right. So I pull up a little bit. I make it just a little bit more rounded. Maybe pull that out slightly. Kind of round it out a little bit. And that looks pretty good to me. Nice little W mouth. It's like a little cat mouth. Okay, now we want to add our eyes onto either side of our face. And we're going to be using 6mm eyes for this part. We're just going to use these two little 6mm eyes. And I like to put the eyes one stitch away from either end of the mouth. So right here on this end. And just kind of wiggle it into place. And then on this end, one stitch away. And just kind of wiggle it into place. And that'll add those two little eyes. And then on the inside, we can take these locking mechanisms and just place it right on the edge of that eye and then just pop it into place like that to lock everything tightly onto the face so that it doesn't ever come apart. There's the other locking mechanism, like that. Look on the outside. Yeah, that's pretty good. I love it. Oh my God, they're so cute. Okay, and then the last thing that you could do is we could add, I sometimes like to add a little like cheeks, but we can do that a little bit later when we add all of our sprinkles on. It might be a little easier to add later on as well. So we might do that in a bit. Okay, and that's going to be how to add the face. Now we can continue on to round 12. Let's grab our yarn. Pull it a little tighter. Okay, so we're going to pull our stitch marker up here. Let's go ahead and get the end there tucked in. Pull our stitch marker up just like that. And we'll continue on to round 12. For round 12, we're going to have our last round of decreasing it down. We're going to be doing that by single crocheting one to our first stitch, and then invisible decreasing into our next stitch, and then repeating that same process all the way around to get to the end. That's going to bring our stitch count down from 18, which is our current stitch count, down to 12. So we'll go ahead and do a single crochet into our first stitch right here. That's going to be one single crochet and then one invisible decrease after that. So front loop, and then a single crochet under both of those front loops, just like that. And we'll do that repeat 6 times to get all the way around. So let's do our next repeat, one single crochet, and then one invisible decrease. Just keep doing that repeat all the way around. Single crochet 1, invisible decrease 1. Single crochet 1, invisible decrease 1. Okay, we're almost done already. One single crochet, one invisible decrease, and then one last repeat here, one single crochet, and then one invisible decrease. Just like that. And that'll be the end of round 12. For round 13, nice and easy. We actually just want to do a single crochet into every single stitch around. And actually for this round, we're not going to pull our stitch marker up and over because we want it on the outside so we can pull it out and get rid of the stitch marker after this round. So we're just going to do a single crochet into every single stitch all the way around. So just one single crochet into every stitch around. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Let's get a little bit more yarn. We'll go 4 and 5, 6, 7, there should be 12 total, 8, 9, 10, 2 more, 11, and then our last stitch is going to be right here for 12. Now what we can do is we can actually just cut the yarn and then we'll use this for sewing it all together. Now the hard part is we want to cut this leaving a pretty long end. Maybe about like that long should be good. Maybe like that long. And this is just going to be so we can sew the two tops together and actually create the donut shape. Once you cut it, you can pull the yarn all the way through like that. Just pull it all the way through like normal. Okay. And that's going to be the end of the crochet for our donut. And you can see how it looks like a donut a little bit, right? No? Well, let's make it look like more like a donut. So basically what you want to do is you want to tuck this in like that. Just poke it in. And then you want to poke in the top part also. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew these loops onto these loops. Before I do that though, let's go ahead and just pull our stitch marker all the way out. I like to just pull it out a little bit from a few stitches and then just pull it all the way out and it should pull out no problem. We'll throw that to the side. We can use that for another project later on. Okay, so now we're going to sew this closed. Now it can be kind of tricky. I'm not going to lie. This can be maybe the trickier part of this pattern is sewing it actually closed. We're going to start by threading this onto our needle. Like so. Haha, like so. Genius. All right, we're going to start by tucking this on the inside and we're going to go into the body and we're going to sew it into all of these. See how it's kind of got like these little loops on the ends here? We're going to use 12 of these to connect to these last 12 stitches at the end. So what I kind of like to do is find the first 12 stitches that I'm going to work with. I know I want this one to be the last one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 is going to be like right there, like that. So that's going to be, again, let's count that. So this one's going to be our first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So right out through there. So what we're going to do is we're going to come out through the inside and then out through numero 12, like that. Or whatever one is lined up with it. See, so if you find it, you can kind of like line up these ends. Actually, it looks like that one will be lined up. So we'll go straight through this stitch right here. You can kind of see it on the top. Come out through that stitch. And then all the way down through the center, through the hole. So just straight through the hole and then straight through the hole on the bottom. Like that. And we'll pull it a little tighter. And now what we'll do is we'll come up, we'll come up and go out through the neck, both loops of the stitch, of the next stitch over right here, and then out through. So first I'd like to go through both those loops here, and then on the top I like to come out through the next stitch on the end right there. See, so how it's like the next stitch over, and just come out through that stitch and pull it a little tighter. And I like to pull it like kind of tight as I go, and then go straight back down through the center, turn everything around, come up through the next stitch over. Now this is where the tricky part is. It's kind of hard to see where the next stitch on the beige is. It's going to be, let's pull this a little tighter. It's going to be, this was our last stitch that we worked around right here. Let's go ahead and pull this a little tighter though. That and like that. This was the last stitch that we worked into. The next one's going to be right here. So first I go into that one and then I come up and I find the next stitch on the top, which is going to be, this stitch is where we just came out of, so the next one's going to be right here. Like that. So you can kind of see where that last one came out because of the beige. Pull it tighter, go straight down through the center. And I usually like to do like 4 to 6 of these, and then we'll start to stuff it, and then we'll stuff it as we go throughout the next piece. So let's go to the next stitch here on the bottom. That's going to be this stitch. It's going to be the next one on the beige. And then on the top, looks like this was the last stitch. So maybe this one right here will be the next stitch on the cyan end. I should say the frosting end. Okay, back down through the center. And we're about a third of the way done now. Up to the top, into the next stitch, which is going to be right here. So we're up through that stitch, then up to the top, and the next stitch over is going to be right there. Pull it a little tighter. Okay, before I continue sewing it closed, and you kind of see how it's getting sewn closed there. Before I continue sewing it closed, I want to stuff it a little bit. And the way to stuff it, first let's grab some stuffing. We're going to need actually more stuffing than you think. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. We'll go maybe about this much to start with. And I like to do just a little bit at a time. So I'll just take a little bit of the stuffing here. And then what we want to do is kind of work our finger in so that it's under in the open parts that's not sewn together. And then I kind of go in and hook my finger around to stuff it on this end. And then I hook around to stuff it on this end with some stuffing. So we're going to go place our stuffing in, and we want to hook in so that the stuffing is in the places where we've already sewn closed. So we're just stuffing, and you want to really hook it in there to really get under those stitches that you've already sewn closed. So that's good on that end. And now we'll do it the other way around. So we're going to go in and stuff it around the other side. So that way there's stuffing on either end. There we go. That's pretty good. So that's 1 and 2. Okay, so I think that's good to start it off with. And let's continue on in our piece. So I already came through the top. Now we want to go straight through the hole. Like that. Okay, and then through our next stitch over, which is going to be, this one was the one we just came out of. You can kind of see how it's pulling it in there. Our next one is going to be right here. Like that. So we're in through the beige stitch. Now we'll flip it around and come out through the next stitch on the frosting, which will be right. And don't worry about like hurting your piece. This should be fine. So that's our next stitch right there. We'll pull it through and then back down through the center. Next stitch. So that was the last stitch we worked into. This will be the next stitch right here. And next stitch on the frosting end will be right like that. See, because I like how that beige kind of pokes out. It shows me where that last stitch was. Pull a little tighter. And should we stuff it anymore before we continue? Let's do one more and then we'll stuff it. Back down through the hole. Next stitch over is going to be right here. And then next stitch over on the top is going to be right here. And you kind of see how as you get going, it gets a little bit easier as you get going, or as you go. Okay, so that was like 3 stitches. Now I'll put it to the side for a second and start stuffing it a little bit more. I got a really nice little spot here. Just put stuffing in and try to get under the places where we've already sewn in. So we're going to hold the stuffing and just hook it on the inside. Go, hooked on. Phonics. Hooked on phonics. That kind of dates me there. I don't know if hooked on phonics is even a thing anymore. Looks like I could stuff it a little bit more on the other end as well. Okay, and then this rest of the stuffing, I'm just going to start to like get it on the inside, and we're just going to have to work with the stuffing around it and just kind of ignore the stuffing as we sew it together. Okay, next stitch. So we came out through right there. We'll go back down through the center. The next stitch over is going to be right here. So we go through that stitch first and then poke up through the top, through the next stitch over where that beige is coming out. And pull it nice and tight. Back down through the center. Next stitch over is right here. Up at the top, it's going to be right there. And pull it nice and tight. Okay, let's see. How many stitches do we have left? It's maybe easier to look at the bottom. It looks like we got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. As we get to the back here, it's kind of hard to see where all the stitches are, but you just want to really make sure it's all sewn closed. Now I'm going to make sure that the rest of this is stuffed up before I finish sewing. So I want to do the rest of my stuffing before I do my last few stitches sewing closed, just so that I don't forget to stuff it, because after you're done sewing it closed, it's pretty much impossible to stuff it any more than that. So I like to just stuff the rest of it up. And let's just make sure I like the stuffing there. This, see how like this has a little bit less stuffing? You can kind of see it has some give, whereas the rest of it is pretty tight. So just maybe a little bit more right into that end here, like that. And just really make sure that stuffing's on the inside and away from your stitches to make it easier to sew it closed. Okay, back down through the center, and let's do our last few stitches here. So that's going to be this stitch right here, and then that's where our last one came out, so our next one's going to be right there. Pull tight, back down through the center. Get back down through the center of the donut. Next stitch is going to be right here. And notice how I go in through that stitch, and I kind of like push away from the stuffing to get away from it, because I don't want to go into the stuffing itself as I sew, because I don't want the stuffing to show through. And then I'll go next stitch over right here, pull tight, down through the center, like that. Next stitch over is going to be right here, and then next stitch over on the body is going to be right, let's go like right there. Okay, and this looks like it might be the last one. Back down through the center. And I don't even know where to go here. Looks like this was where our last stitch was. Maybe that's our first one. Looks like we have just like one more kind of space. See how it's like a little bit open right here? Let's kind of try to close that in by going around this right here. And then we'll go in through the body. You can kind of come out anywhere. Let's go make sure that we're under the beige. So I'm going to come out through the beige like this. And I'm going to pull it nice and tightly. We really want to pull this tight because we don't want it coming undone. But we want to pull it nice and tight. And just stretch it open. Pull it tight. And then we can just cut it nice and close. Now, if you're worried about it coming undone, what you can do here is you can make a little knot to kind of make sure that it's not going to come undone. I'm not really worried about it because it's not going to come undone. So I'm just going to cut it nice and close. Like that. Flip it over, and then just pull our frosting down so that it's dripping downwards. Okay, and that's going to be how to sew the donut closed. Now we have one last thing that we want to do, which is add sprinkles to the top. And maybe we can add some like cheeks as we do that as well. Now there's a few different ways to do that. Here you can kind of see I made just regular sprinkles. You can try to do a wavy, like kind of sprinkly or like kind of like frosting, extra frosting thing. I tried doing that once before. It's really hard to do. You basically have to like embroider a bunch of ends in. It's kind of complicated. I think sprinkles are the easiest way to add some detail to the top. Now there's two different kinds of ways to do sprinkles. You can do just a bunch of different colors like this one, or you could do it as just like one color of sprinkles like this one. I'm going to show you how to just do it with one color just because it's a little easier and it's the same kind of technique for both. You just do it with a bunch of different colors. So let's start by adding some sprinkles. Let's do, let's see, we already did white sprinkles for this one. Maybe we could do, let's see, would red or yellow sprinkles be better? Let's do yellow sprinkles. Yeah, why not? Let's do yellow sprinkles for the top. Okay, so you want to get some yellow yarn. You want a pretty long end because we're going to use this to make all of the sprinkles at the same time. We're going to cut the end here and then just thread this onto our needle. I mean, it's not that long, you know, it's maybe like 2 or 3 feet. Thread that onto our needle. And we're going to start by coming out through the bottom, somewhere on the bottom, maybe like right here, and come out where we want our first sprinkle, which is just going to be like right there. Now for the sprinkles, I like to pull it out just enough where we have just a little bit of a tail end. We're going to use this for double knotting it together at the end to make all the sprinkles stuck in where they're supposed to be. And I like to make sprinkles maybe like 1 or 2 stitches apart. It kind of depends on how big you want your sprinkles to be. On this one, I kind of made them a little bigger than I was hoping. I kind of think they should be maybe a little bit smaller than that. So we're going to do, for that one, I did 1-2 stitches away like that. But this one, I think we can just do 1 stitch away and just do more sprinkles. So we're going to go in through that stitch, and then that'll make our first sprinkle horizontal. You want your sprinkles to be spread out and angled in different ways so that they look different. So we're gonna go and we're just gonna start working our way. I'm gonna go left. So I'm gonna go around our piece like this, and then we're gonna come out through the back. So we're gonna do our next sprinkle. Let's go like up here. And you wanna spread them out like somewhat. You don't need to like go crazy with it. Oopsies, I kind of tangled my yarn here around my light box. There we go. And pull it tight enough so that there's just a little bit of sprinkle left over. You don't need to pull it too tight though. You want it kind of a little loose, because if you pull it too tight, it'll like kind of indent your piece. So that one went horizontal. So let's make this one diagonal. So I'll just go 1 stitch over. Let's go right here. So I'm gonna go right here for our next one. And the next one over, let's go on the inside a little bit and we'll make it more vertical. Go through this stitch, and I just really like to keep switching it up. So that's that one. I'll pull a little tighter just to kind of match it, and then for this next one we'll go let's go this way. See, so they're all different angles. So that one come up that way, and this next one, let's do it on the inside here, and we'll do kind of a horizontal on the inside, just like that maybe. We'll go horizontal over. And then this next one, let's do a cheek. So we're gonna add little tiny cheeks around each side of the eye. So we're gonna come out right next to where the eye is, like that. Oh my goodness, I keep working around the wrong end here. And then I'm gonna go back, we're gonna go into right under where the eye is. So I kind of like to pry the eye under with my crochet or with my needle and go straight on the inside just like this. And then we'll come out, I don't know, maybe we'll come out like through the top like this. And this one you really want to be careful with. You want to just pull it enough so that it just goes like that. Yeah, see how it's like kind of under the eye? And sometimes I like to pry it open a little bit so it kind of just barely covers the eye. Like that. Oh, that looks cute. That looks really cute. Okay, and then we'll go, let's go 1 stitch. Let's see, we did horizontal, vertical. Let's go right up like that. So he's got just 1 sprinkle right in the middle of his head. And we'll do a next sprinkle. Let's do the next sprinkle. Actually, let's do the next sprinkle where the next cheek eye is going to be. This. And you kind of see how I'm just like kind of spreading the sprinkles out. Looks like we maybe want one over here, maybe. You can kind of fill it in a little bit more as we go. We'll go in under this next eye, just kind of pry it under the eye like that. And then out through somewhere where we want our next sprinkle to be. Like that. Oops. So see, that one didn't really go where I want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out. Oops. There we go. Just pull it a little bit out and then kind of stretch it out so that it gets under the eye more, and then pull it tight. Once it's tightened around, everything should be fine, but sometimes you need to just like kind of force the sprinkle to go where you want it to be. There we go. That's pretty good. This one's kind of a little bit different, so maybe we just kind of tighten that one in a little bit, like that. And if you're worried and you want to like tighten it a little bit more, you kind of just stuff it in with your needle like that to kind of match the two ends. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and keep adding sprinkles all the way around, and I'll be back in just a moment. You don't need to keep watching me do this, but I'll show you at the end where how I double knot it together and finish up all the sprinkles. But I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so this is going to be my last one. I'm going to go in through this stitch to add our last sprinkle here. I like how many sprinkles I have. Now, if you want to add more colors, obviously you could add do this in a bunch of different colors too. But the final part for the final sprinkle is I want to come out where this tail end is. Just like this. And then we can double knot these two ends together to keep everything tied close. So we're just going to double knot these two ends. And it looks like I actually had way more yellow than I needed. Now you don't want to double knot this too tightly though, because as you double knot this, it will pull your sprinkles in, and we're going to have to fix that in just a second. Pull it tighter and then double knot it. So we're going to tie it again. And then I can just cut the ends here nice and close like that. And then I like to take the back of my needle and just stuff that sprinkle or that knot back into the piece like that. And then the final thing is I like to kind of stretch out some of these sprinkles. So sometimes they get pulled in a little tighter than I want. So I kind of like to pull them out just a little bit, so that they kind of are more pronounced on the frosting, just like that. And maybe a little bit more over here. Yeah. But I think that's pretty good. We got a blue donut with some yellow sprinkles. You can kind of see that frosting on the inside. I mean, not the frosting, the stuffing on the inside. If you want to get rid of that, you can actually just pull it out of your piece. That's just some stuffing that got lost on the inside. Sometimes I like to take some tweezers like this and just pull that out like that to really make sure all that I want to keep calling that frosting. All the stuffing is out so that it's not kind of poking out on the inside. Just to clean it up just a little bit more. But there we go. There is our adorable little donut. Thank you so much for crocheting this pattern along with me. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it. And this one was so much fun for me to design. I actually designed it live on a video like years ago, where I actually made it live on camera and I designed it live on camera. And I love this pattern. I think it's so cool, so much fun to make, and so unique for a crochet pattern. Usually in crochet patterns, you don't make things with holes in the center, so it's fun to make one that's a little bit different, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to find more of my Sweet Stitches themed patterns like our ice cream cone, eclair, gummy bears, our pies, our chocolate covered strawberries, or the other mystery patterns that are coming out throughout the season, you can find them all by going to clubcrochet.com/sweets. That's where I'll keep all of my Sweet Stitch themed patterns. Thank you so much again for crocheting along with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe down below. Pasta la pizza, happy hooking, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. How would a donut say bye? People like, bye. So long. Oh boy. Bye.